Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tester Economist. On the earnings call, they were talking about the world requiring 3 to 400 terawatt hours of batteries to be off the dependency of fossil fuels. I don't really know how long they're expecting this to take, but if I had to ponder a guess, I would say around 50 years or so, at least for the lion's share of it. I think this may be for wind and solar only, or perhaps some other renewable energy sources like geothermal and hydro too. My point is though, I don't think this possibly includes the potential of nuclear. Nuclear energy does seem to have a polarised opinion, but I think overall it has definitely got a worse reputation than it should, likely perpetuated by propaganda from the oil and gas industries. Whilst on this subject, Elon then brings up the types of cathodes that he expects to be used for this target. He says the main cathode will probably be iron, because iron can scale to very high tonnage. The world is awash with iron, and to achieve this mission, as it is on such a large scale, likely something we'll find out on Master Plan Part 3, but we must use the most abundant and lowest cost resources that we have available to us, and make use of them the best way we can. We can't be dependent on scarce resources that are simply not scalable for this mission. In other words, elements like nickel. There is a lot of nickel on the planet, but it's one thing using nickel for everyone's battery in a mobile phone. It's a whole other story when the battery becomes big enough to power a car. Although all the nickel from the batteries and other elements will be recycled too. So in theory, we do hopefully need to only get them out the ground once, and then they continually be recycled and used in future products when they no longer fit in the previous. Elon then goes on to say that there'll probably be about twice as many iron cathodes as there are nickel. He has said in the past about 2/3 iron and 1/3 nickel, so this would further reinforce what he has said before. However, when he has said that, I have commented and thought it more likely it'd be closer to 80% iron, but he's still saying 2/3 iron. In the past, I have assumed him to mean 2/3 iron cathodes for cars, and I thought eventually 100% iron cathodes for energy. But in this context, he is talking about batteries in general. We don't need to go into all the advantages of iron, but basically it's lower cost but less energy dense. It also has a lot more charging cycles before degradation kicks in, so will last considerably longer. All in all, it is the perfect battery for the application of energy storage. I don't think there is any reason to be using nickel for energy storage, unless it needs to be mobile for any sort of reason. So if Elon did actually mean 1/3 of batteries would be nickel, and half of all batteries are iron cathodes for energy storage, then that would only mean 16% of iron batteries would be used in cars. Now, although Tesla's new platform will likely eventually have about half the battery size of a Model Y, thus producing twice as many cars with the same amount of nickel, I would still doubt that the vast majority of EVs will have nickel cells. I don't like putting words in people's mouths, but it's possible that Elon does mean 2/3 of iron cathodes for vehicles. But then he does reiterate again, probably twice as much iron cathode as nickel. And in all honesty, I am inferring this as actual quantity of batteries. It also could be tonnage he is referring to, and a ton of nickel will make more batteries than a ton of iron. So it is somewhat open for interpretation. However, either way, I would safely infer that he is talking about at least 33% of the EVs on the road having nickel cells. And the way the 4680 is planned to scale, Tesla are going to own a large share of that market. Of course, we're talking about vehicle count too, and if each robotaxi is replacing 5 vehicles, then nickel cells should potentially stretch a lot further for actual usage. And then he brings up the fact that manganese cathode is a wild card. We've been hearing about manganese cathodes for some time now. The element is about 5 times more abundant than nickel, yet the energy density is not too dissimilar. Combine that in a 4680 Model Y, and they'll be capable of mid 300 miles of range, or more, depending on how much silicon is placed in the anode. I think we can go beyond assuming Tesla are already working on this chemistry, and have been for some time. It would be a big breakthrough when it comes to battery cells. It would create a real sweet spot in EVs, and the nickel could be reserved for the applications that require much higher energy density, like semi-trucks or possibly even aviation. But there are steps in getting to a full manganese cathode, and we've already seen the first step with CATL's M3P cell. This combining an LFP cathode with a ternary cathode But the ternary cathode they are using does use manganese along with aluminium and zinc. Not only does it not use nickel, but it doesn't use cobalt either. It also produces more energy density than LFP at about the same cost. So this is clearly a great step, and quite possibly what CATL are going to produce at their new factory, which is really coming on fast, just like we expect in China. Supposedly the first phase complete in January. They'll be supplying Tesla, but we don't know what with, and where these additional cells will be used. Tesla were meant to be building another factory in Shanghai, which I assumed was going to take on this new CATL supply, but clearly Tesla haven't begun yet, so I'm not too sure. Then the next step we hope to see for manganese is LMFP, which is what some people thought M3P cells were. This should be more energy dense again and potentially offer the same advantages of LFP with the additional energy density. We have yet to see this chemistry in mass production, but it will be a game changer. And it's a possibility that all these other car manufacturers are just waiting for this kind of technology. The potential for them to cut battery costs in half while still offering competitive ranges. However, Legacy have already invested huge into long-range nickel batteries, so I'm not sure. Maybe there'll be some new entrants into the market with competitive advantages that they can just pivot to the latest chemistry and undercut all other competitors on cost whilst offering good range. Tesla have built the 4680 architecture in a way to change different cathodes, and we do anticipate there is a chance that they will eventually have a manganese 4680 cell, which would obviously be mind-blowing. It would mean that Tesla can build so many EVs with decent range at such low cost as long as they keep building enough lithium refineries. And despite how many people keep saying to me or commenting about this, Elon has said on numerous occasions there will not be an LFP 4680 cell, which makes me think that Tesla may never make an LFP cell for vehicles. When Tesla make their own LFP cell, I believe it will be a different form factor designed around LFP and energy. The 4680 was a form factor designed for nickel cells in EVs with structural battery packs. We need to go back to first principles thinking and forget about economies of scale, because this level of production we're on at any of these batteries are already beyond any economies of scale the world has ever seen. And then on the earnings call, we hear on that note, we are pursuing aggressively North American iron cathode supplies. And we'll talk about more of that in a future date. Tesla are aggressively pursuing supplies for iron cathodes in North America. That one little sentence is huge. We've heard Elon and Drew talk about Tesla doing LFP cells in the past, again often saying there will not be a 4680 LFP cell, but now they are saying that they are making great efforts into getting the supplies to achieve this. I'm guessing this may have something to do with the Inflation Reduction Act. Tesla could get $45 from the government for every kilowatt hour of LFP cell they can manufacture. And if Elon thinks the 4680 cell will be about $70 a kilowatt hour, then I can't begin to imagine how lower cost Tesla could get an LFP cell down to. There's a chance the cost could be even lower than the actual subsidy they receive from the government. If not, then close, at least within time when ramped up. Tesla will be able to make these cells for literally possibly nothing, and then go off and sell them in megapacks or Powerwalls for something like $200 profit per kilowatt hour. I've spoken often about how the form factor they may pursue with LFP, but it requires total rethinking due to the fact energy density is not a concern, nor is size. Think about all the EV cells they have to fit inside the floor of a vehicle. They can only be so high, or else the car would be too high, and it would affect driving position, clearance, centre of gravity, etc. Energy storage is a totally different game, not to mention the thermal issues you don't get with LFP compared to nickel. Anyway, it sounds like something is coming that I have been talking about almost 2 years ago now, a second battery day for Tesla's LFP cells. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.